mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment, benevolence. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence. Wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of the Buddha usher in the dawn of nonviolent global village forever. Here is the sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amaga Virochana Mahamudra Manipada Ivala Prabhataya Hum.
Please stand for chanting of the refuges. When we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, first in Sino-Korean, out in keeping with our tradition, which comes from the mountain monasteries of Korea, and then in English. So please just throw your voice in as best you can. I go for refuge to the Buddha
I go for refuge to the Buddha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings
I will penetrate the teachings
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Now remain standing for a moment more while we acknowledge the land upon which we are standing at this moment. On this 15th day of December, 2024, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of Native peoples, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, the Ojibwe, the Council of Three Fire Tribes, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be a historically Black neighborhood during times of racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening and for the awakening of all life, the benevolent energies of our meditation, chanting, and full presence here at this service this morning extend to all beings on this planet and throughout time and space. May there be deepening of our interbeing. May peace prevail and wars cease. Now let's make 3 bows to the altar. And then please return for a shorter period of meditation. Please join me in a little bit of yoga stretching, a mindful embodiment of our practice. Warming the face and the eyes. And then massaging the scalp, the top of the crown of your head. Working with the earlobes. Leaning forward to stretch the lower back. Looking all the way up. Then in harmony with the breath, stretching upwards. All the way out in front of you. Stretching now to your left. And then to your right. Clasping your hands behind your back. And now bringing nourishing oxygen to your spinal column by doing a spinal twist. Bring your eyes all the way around. Moving in the opposite direction. Placing your fists at the base of your trunk, and then some nice big upper body circles. Reversing direction. Grasping your left ribs with your right palm. Leaning toward the right. And then toward the left. Clasping the hands behind the head. Twist to the left, to the right. Bringing the arms high over the head. So good morning, everyone. Nice to have all of you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas present with us this morning. This morning, I was the person responsible for waking up the community and leading our early morning practice. And so that always means getting up when it's dark out, coming outside, coming over here to prepare the Buddha Hall, and then going and doing some special chanting to wake people up. Well, this morning when I got up and went out, I was somewhat fearful because I had heard these reports that there's going to be ice. It's going to be very slippery. So watch out. So I was going out in the dark, somewhat fearful. Fortunately, the ice was not all that bad, but I had to be very mindful about where I was stepping so as not to slip. So this darkness, this time of year is a challenge, at least it is for me. I have been pining away for the light to return so that in the morning when I go out and wake people up, there's already a little bit of daylight and I can see what the heck I am doing. As you all know, winter solstice is approaching, December 21st. And winter solstice is basically a celestial or a solar event. It's the point at which the Earth, the northern hemisphere, is tilted farther away from the sun. And so we have more darkness. In fact, it's on December 21st, the light and the dark will be equal amounts of daylight and darkness. And so this is known as sun standing still because it feels like it's sort of balanced. So with any solar event like this, there is a lot of culture, a lot of spirituality, a lot of religiosity seeming to be connected with this time of year. There are pagan ceremonies. Stonehenge is always known for its solstices, both summer and winter. Cold climates, in particular, if you go to Iceland, Alaska, places like this, they're known to have these big festivals, and they do things like sit in a warm sauna and then run outside and jump in ice cold water. There's a sense of contrast. And in a way, it sort of mirrors the contrast between lightness and dark. Many sort of traditions that have been adopted to Christianity and other religions. I don't know actually if they're associated with Christmas, the celebration of Christmas, but I'm not so sure that is exactly the same thing as the Christian celebration of the birth of Christ. But some of the traditions that we see this time of year would be, for example, a lot of gift giving, the idea of mistletoe, the Yule log, all these kinds of things. So the Yule log actually is sort of interesting. I was reading about that one. And actually, it's a log. And the Yule logs I've seen in this culture are maybe facsimiles of that. They're about this big and they're beautifully decorated and all of that. Well, originally, actually, all they did was go out and chop down a tree, and they put one end of it into the fireplace, and the other end was sticking out. So you had all these branches, and then they would burn it a little bit at a time. So over a 12-day period, they would burn a part of it, extinguish it, and keep shoving it into the fireplace. And then at the end of that time, whatever was not used up was put aside, and the ashes were preserved. They were put underneath people's beds. And when they were under the beds, it was thought to be protection against thunder and lightning events happening. So it's interesting to read about these things. And some of you in your backgrounds may have traditions that you would like to offer us later. I'm sort of curious about that when we have our time of sharing, if you have any additional ones to offer. So this season, I'm going to just use winter solstice as maybe a metaphor for the season that we're in. In Zen Buddhist practice, we do not celebrate winter solstice, but this time of year, we do have several special events that happen. And so if you look at our calendar, we will be having a year-end retreat in which we sit together in silence for about 5 days. Then there is a special New Year's Eve service called Kindling the Light of Wisdom Mind, a New Year's Day service, and then extending into the new year, January 10th, we celebrate our Enlightenment sitting, which is probably it's the most important day in the Buddhist calendar. And we celebrate that by sitting all night long from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. And so you're invited to participate in any or all of these upcoming events. And there, of course, are some more information in the foyer and an opportunity to sign up. What I want to focus on for the next little while, though, is sort of the opportunity this time of year for us to think about and to work with darkness and lightness. You can think of it as, the winter solstice, light and dark are equally balanced, or maybe they're equally available to us. And guess what? Inside each of us all the time, we have this darkness and we have this lightness. And it is something for us to work with. So some reflection questions do come up around this, and I invite you to use this as a time of sort of reflecting. So these are Dharma thoughts from various teachers that I looked at on the internet, and also asking residents and others who came to the temple for their thoughts as well. So first of all, just comment on darkness. I'm going to use darkness as a metaphor for maybe our bad habits, and also for working with the 3 poisons within it: greed, anger, and delusion. I always want to be careful when I talk about darkness, because this can sort of go to a place of, devaluing the darkness. And maybe if you have dark skin, you could go to that place as well. And so that's not what I mean at all, but rather it's how do we embrace those parts of ourselves, those dark parts of ourselves, and hold them with care. The less desirable might be a better way of putting it. So all of us can identify maybe habits that we want to work with or change. the idea is not to sort of let those habits become a story like, oh, I can't change. It's like, this is how I am. This is my karma. This is what I've inherited from my ancestors. And so how do we hold that and sort of balance that with the arising of positive kinds of thoughts? And so this is what I think the reflection is all about. Those questions that we can sort of ask ourselves to make ourselves reflect and think about going toward the light. It's interesting that for every service that we have, the bell chant that we do just before we stand up and do Yebel, Om Amoga Vairakana Maha Mudra Mani Padma Jabala Pravataya. So that is a chant of light, the mantra of light, it is called. Sort of awakening the wisdom within us. Our New Year's Eve service is called Kindling the Light of Wisdom Mind. And we have many references to light throughout our scriptures and literatures. One example is this story that we tell, not so much this time of year, probably more at Buddha's birthday, of this old woman getting ready for the arrival of the Buddha in her village. And there, to celebrate this event, all the villagers put little lamps along the path that the Buddha was going to walk. And the lamps were quite beautiful, elaborate, these lamp offerings. Well, she was very, very poor and could not afford a lamp. So but she had this sincere heart. She really wanted to make this beautiful offering. And so she cobbled something together. So what she did was she went to the potter and she said, I want to make a lamp as an offering. Do you have a little piece of used pottery that I can have? And so he says, yeah, go out back. And she found this fragment of pottery that she wanted to use as her lamp. And then she went and was able to obtain some straw, which she wove into a wick. And she went to the oil merchant and said, could I have just a drop of oil so that I can light this lamp? When her lamp was finished, she put it along the path and lit it. And it burned very brightly. And whenever the Buddha visited places, one of his main disciples, Moggallana, would go around. It was his job, for safety reasons, to go around at the end of the night and make sure all the lamps were out. And so he would do that. And he got to this little teeny lamp that was just burning and burning, and tried to blow it out, tried to snuff it out, but it just wouldn't. And he took his big robe and went whoosh. None of that worked. The lamp kept burning. And so he reported this to the Buddha. And he said, what do I do with this lamp? And the Buddha said to him, well, that lamp was offered by this woman of such a sincere heart that you can't extinguish that light. You can't let it go out. And so this is an example of the light growing within, the light and being an expression of our sincere heart, an expression of our commitment. There's other stories about light, and we have this reminder from our Zen master Samui Sunim that if you bring a candle into a dark room, then you can see, then there is light. But if you try to make a candle's worth of light, a candle's worth of darkness into a light place, the light of the candle is not diminished. So in a sense, this is light overpowers dark. It's a reminder of that, which is interesting because you think of our culture, we are all wired to go toward the negative. It takes 5 positives to overcome a negative. And so it's more effort to bring the light than the darkness, so to speak. One other image that I would share with you about this working with light, bringing light into the darkness, has to do with major events in the Buddha's life. If you read the story of the Buddha's birth, for example, when the birth happened, this may be, I may be mixing up even, this may be Parinirvana, I'm not quite sure, but as part of the event, you get this thunder, you get this lightning, and then you get this great light. And this great light shines in even the darkest corners. So all beings of the world gather together, and you have this light by which everybody is able to see one another, which I think is also a beautiful sort of metaphor of how we work with light, how we bring this seeing each other clearly into our interactions in the world. So I would ask you to maybe think about holding these various things, holding the light and the dark sort of equally, valuing both parts of yourself. Choosing to go toward the light, in a sense, this is like watering the positive seeds within us. So if we want to let go of an old habit, we can switch our thinking about that and move to a more positive habit of seeing each other clearly and having deep faith and commitment. And then the 5th one, I would say, is sharing the light. So probably many of you have participated in ceremonies where there is some sort of sharing of light. So one person has a candle and they light the candle, the person next to you, and so on down the line until the room is filled with candles. And the sharing of the light does not diminish anything. Rather, it grows the more that we're able to share the light. During this season, it's an opportunity to maybe create your own special sorts of rituals around the season. Year-round at the temple, at breakfast, we always do a reading of the Dhammapada, and then we always share some sort of story, some sort of other reading. At the moment, we're working on the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Has anybody heard of this? Yeah, it's a pretty popular book. And she incorporates many sort of wonderful stories in there. And the reason I like these traditions are it's an opportunity to share the good stories. Remember, in the news, we have all these negative stories. We need to tell 5 times as many good stories in order to cover those, make up for those negative stories. So this is a tradition you might consider doing, at least during this season, you have an opportunity to be with people and maybe to share some good or positive stories. And the other tradition I wanted to share with you is an idea for your practice. Comes from Susan and Ansu. These are 2 of our dear temple friends who now live in Grand Rapids. I don't know if anybody here has been around long enough to really remember them, but they used to come to this temple all the time, and then they moved. And they had a family, but they wanted to preserve their Buddhist traditions. And so how do they do that during the holiday season? So they have written this up. And so if you have an interest in obtaining a copy of this, I'm going to read it to you. I can send it to you. I have a sign-up sheet that I'll put out there. Being Buddhist in a predominantly Christian society during the Christmas season can be challenging. Our family's holiday tradition incorporates pieces from many other religious traditions. It centers around Buddha's enlightenment, which according to different Buddhist traditions is celebrated anywhere from early December to mid-January. We move the celebration a little bit to coincide with time off we get for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Our celebration starts on December 18th and continues each night for 7 nights. We start by reading a chapter out of Prince Siddhartha, The Story of the Buddha, by Jonathan Ladau and Jenna Brooke. We also made a special sort of Yule log with 7 candles, and we light a new candle each night. Our home altar is decorated with garland and candle lights. And then I'll read their traditions in a moment. If you look here, we've created this special altar just as an example of something you might do at home. And so you see I've incorporated the candles. A friend of mine gave me this wooden box with a Buddha. I have my candles. And on the wall, this wall hanging is a Bodhi tree. And actually, Susan is the one who made this, our friend from Grand Rapids. And her family, as part of their ceremony, these leaves actually are Velcro. And so you can take them off like that. So they put on more leaves every night and sort of decorate their Bodhi tree. Then in their family gathering, what they do is the first night, they read an unexpected sight. So this is part, if you read the story of the Buddha's enlightenment, it's kind of a review of the Buddha's life. And the first part of the story has to do with Buddha growing up, leaving his home place, the palace, going out into the world. And he encounters some sights that he finds shocking. The first sight being an old man, because where he lived, apparently there weren't any old people around, or he was not allowed to see them, something like this. So he said, "What's that?" This old man. And so they read about this unexpected sight, and then they have a discussion in their family with the kids about growing older, respecting the elderly, helping people who are older, etc. And then they encourage each other to go visit an elderly friend or family member, a nursing home, donate your time, talent, or money. Then they sing some songs, some of their favorites that they maybe learned here at the temple or at Peace Camp. They light some incense. They light the first candle on the Yule log, and they chant the three refuges. Sit quietly together, still as statues, for a few moments. It's an example then of special family time together that you can create. And what I like about this, they have a different one for every night, is that it incorporates all of these sort of traditions about gathering together, telling good stories to one another, offering a time for reflection, offering ways to cultivate the life within us, and then just closing with some meditation. So as I say, I'm happy to share this document with you if you're interested. And then when they're done, they say this all leads into Christmas Day, which we celebrate in the traditional secular way. Have a Christmas tree, open presents and stockings, have a nice meal with our extended family. And as our children get older, these important discussions evolve into daytime charitable services, such as volunteering at homeless shelters or nursing homes. In this way, we can celebrate the true meaning of Christmas in our Buddhist fashion by helping to relieve the suffering of others. So I'm going to stop there and tell us to invite any sharing from those present about how you make this season meaningful.
Thank you. I'll start with something nice and shallow, so then someone else can say something real deep. But my name is MC, or Qigong in these parts. And just last night, my wife and I did a tradition that we've done for about 9 years now. We lived in Panama for 6 of those 9 years. And so for us, the flavor of Christmas is rum and sabil. This hibiscus juice. The sound of Christmas has become this one salsa album, Asalto Navideño. It's from the late 70s. It's a real banger. And we make about 150 cookies for friends and family who now are kind of all over the place. They're in Michigan, they're in Iowa, they're in Panama. I don't know if those cookies ever make it in one piece, but we give it a go. And it's just an evening filled with a lot of dancing, a lot of cooking near misses, and just a lot of joy making these boxes for people who are not here but are here. You know.
So none of you have holiday traditions, rituals. Yes, you want.
I've had a holiday tradition which isn't practiced every year, but it's the time of year that I enjoy making contact with people who've been important in my life. Friends who are now in California, friends who have stayed in England, in Switzerland, and I find it nice to give them a ring and get some conversation going, just to find out what their life has been like since for the last 40 years, 50 years. It brings me a lot of pleasure and it helps other people explain their life. Everyone's life is not perfect. People are getting older, they have their complaints, they have their issues that come up. And it's nice hearing how their life is going and having some good memories brought up that I totally forgotten about. It's a time to connect with the past because your life isn't just what is happening at this moment. It's what has brought you to this moment and what happens after this moment.
I'm just going to jump in real quick. I found one that my mom and I and family would do. She used to go to Florida in the winter, and there was actually a Bodhi tree in one of the public gardens there. So it's a fig tree. If you haven't heard about the actual tree, that was where the Buddha sat under for his enlightenment. And it's I think they call it Ficus religiosa, if I get that English accent right. It's a giant tree. It's not a banyan tree. The banyan trees are the ones with the sort of trailing branches that go down to the ground and then kind of, I believe, they become sort of new trunks there for that tree or that group of trees. This one's a single one, but what they had in this garden was a special celebration or sort of remembrance, I guess. They would offer you for like a donation of money, a tag where you could write on any kind of well-wishing or hope you had for people or other beings. And then you tie them up there in the tree, and you can see all these wishes that people had expressed and hung there on the Bodhi tree. It's really pretty special when you start to kind of get touched, I think, by the hearts of others and your own. So, it'd be nice to do that again, although this year I'm going to Maine, where she'll be in Portland. If you've ever been there, that's also nice.
I just want to make the statement of Christmas. I learned patience, tolerance, acceptance, and surrender. My wife and I got 18 grandkids and 3 great-grandkids. And I'm just waiting on the 26th of December to get here. I'm trying to just simply survive. That's it. And my own spoke about light and dark. And my teacher told me, he said, young child, we live in a world of opposites. Light and dark define one another and balance each other. Some years ago, when I was in the city, they had a blackout on no lights nowhere. And you could feel the rich texture of darkness because it was all around you. Without darkness, there can be no light. Without light, there can be no darkness. So they actually balance one another. And I appreciate and honor both Because if I was a potato or a carrot, I would need darkness to grow. So it has value. I learned that here in my practice. Everything has value. And that has value. I welcome the darkness and the light. 18 grandkids. If I can only survive for 30, I'll be okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that, how you said, Maum, that it's kind of our job to embrace the darkness within ourselves and value it. It's actually pretty powerful. Mark, right here.
Well, I don't have any traditions, but with this talk and pondering about it, it made me realize why not create my own to spread the light that you're speaking of. If I have it, to outwardly spread it. Yeah, just a pondering, leading the thought of mine. Thanks.
So, yeah, one more.
So I've been living at the temple for a long while, and so we have not been having traditional Christmases, although sometimes we have. We're certainly not saying no to the spirit of Christmas. But in our Venerable Samusunam, who founded our organization at this temple, used to have something on all the turns of the seasons, the solstices and the equinoxes. And it would be when the Sangha would come together, and we would all, it would be a kind of potluck. And then afterwards, people would sing, play instruments, tell stories, read poetry. I remember once at one of those occasions, one who spoke, he has a way of wiggling his ears. So it was just all kind of crazy things that we would do. And I thought, wow, this guy really cooks up we began to call it spontaneous entertainment. No preparation needed, we just do the best we can. So when I went to Korea with him on a pilgrimage in 1982, we went around to a lot of temples, and sometimes we were invited to people's homes too. And we would be in the midst of food. It was like a kind of celebration for these Canadians are practicing Buddhism, my goodness, and people were so happy about it. And there would be lots of cooking and lots of food, and then there would be spontaneous entertainment. And I thought, oh wow, Sunam didn't just think it up himself. This whole Buddhist tradition in Korea, they have this spontaneous entertainment. And so he would always ask those of us on the pilgrimage to do something. And we had one woman on pilgrimage, Emmy Meyer, was a concert pianist. And so she would play the piano and everyone would be awed. And he would say A-W-E-D. And then Sunam would turn to me and he would say Sukha, which was my name. And so you should do something. And I said, well, I can't play the piano and I'm not a good singer. He said, you can do the headstand from a yoga teacher. And I said, here, now? He said, yeah. So I ended up doing the headstand, and when we went around the rest of Korea at various places, I did the headstand over and over again. It was just crazy. But I just encourage you finding these kind of rituals that we hear from Maum, different ones from around the world, that we have to cook up some spontaneous ones ourselves and see what we can come up with.
Thank you. Anyone else have any? Cherries.
Thanks as always for sharing your wisdom. It's what makes these Dharma talks meaningful to all of us. Let's end with the 4 great vows, and then we'll have some announcements. So please repeat after me. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate
I vow to liberate
blind passions, one root.
blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate
I vow to terminate
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate
I vow to penetrate
the great way of Buddha.
the great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
I do, thanks. It's hidden. We actually have 3 announcement sheets. And I've condensed them here, but we have actually a bunch of things going on relevant that you've heard about, and I'll just tell you more. You heard about the kindling in the wisdom mind night. That's New Year's Eve get together here 8 to 10 in the evening. And it's a time to take stock of your life and greet the new year in contemplation. Then the next day, there's a sort of a service, right, on New Year's Day, but it's at 11:30. So don't come at 10. You will probably have to wait a while.
You can sleep in a little longer.
What's that?
So you can sleep in a little longer.
A little long.
Yeah. So did I miss anything? Is it just a comment?
It was just a
Okay. We also, I think we've talked about have a working person's retreat here. We call it that because it's, I believe, more like in the morning and evening, so you can kind of.
Yeah. Why don't you read it?
Okay. It's, I don't even know where it is. Hold on. Okay. December 26th to 30th. You can sit with us early in the morning at 6 a.m. and in the evening at 6:30 p.m. And for those who come in the morning, there's a delicious vegetarian breakfast, and there's a sign-up sheet in the foyer. There are several on here. You might want to look at it, especially if you're kind of new here. Welcome, by the way. Seeing lots of new people today. And we also have a donation bowl, but I'll get to that too. I guess, are the working person's retreats also online, or are they only in person?
And they're here in this room.
Okay.
You could just come through this door.
And you don't have to come to all of them, but you can. And then I think there are, if you're kind of familiar with the wider culture of our Buddhist society, we have several retreats going on in the winter. Probably all Chicago.
Yes, all of our temples, Chicago, Mexico City, New York, and Toronto.
Okay. So those are regular retreats, I believe, if you really want to do some meditation. Okay. Well, we actually have a few other things that are sort of ongoing. If we have time, I can read them. A few. We have a meditation course coming up Thursday, January 9th, and they're on consecutive Thursdays from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And then there's also a similar version, which is overnight, Friday to Saturday, January 24th and 25th. Oh, I see. There's in one other sort of like end of year get together you heard about was the Buddha's Enlightenment Sitting. And that's on Friday, beginning at 8 p.m., January 6th.
January
Okay.
10th.
Oh, 10? Okay. That's still a Friday?
Yes.
Okay. And you can come to meditate and awaken to your true nature, inspired by Shakyamuni Buddha, who sat underneath the Bodhi tree and came to freedom. And we'll sit from 8 to 10 or 10 to midnight. And if you want to stay after midnight, you can please stay till 4 a.m. And at that point, we'll have a special celebration where we, I believe, look for the evening star or the morning star. If we're lucky to see that. And there's also some offerings of celebration in terms of like food, I believe.
We will share enlightenment gruel,
And gruel.
which is actually delicious.
Someone just named it their own thing. And also please bring an offering of flowers and fruits, candles, nuts. And I was saying, your contributions are what keep this temple going, whether it be financial or work contributions in a sense. One way we can do that today is there's a donation bowl or a square. Before I turn this over to Haju, she's going to tell you more about the end of the year fundraising event. I guess, I can tell you now, once the service is over, we'll want to move mats and cushions back to the corners where they were. And all the mats and cushions, except for these ones that line the carpet, they stay in their place. So I believe Haju probably wants to talk about more of the fall fundraiser event.
Can you get the board?
Oh, sure.
Again, I'm just wanting to announce that there have been more donations and offerings. Thank you very much, those of you who have been participating. I hope we're about a little between a third and a halfway to 28,400. And you can have a look about with the projects that we're doing when you go out in the foyer. I think that's enough for now because I've been doing it for a few weeks.
Yeah.
I wanted also to welcome our newest member, which is Sheila Johnson, right over here. Let's just make bow and introduce yourself if you see Sheila in the foyer when we're having tea, so we can keep getting to know each other a little better. And she can get to know some of the people who've been around for a while. Yeah. And I wanted also to announce that Cyrus, who has been coming for a few months, is going to join us for Temple Day in January, February, and March. Is that still the case? Yeah. So we'd like to welcome you in front of our Sangha and also let everybody know that we do have these programs where you can come and stay at the temple for a few days to a few months, and even for serious training as a Buddhist, as a Dharma worker, a Dharma guardian, even a priest and a Dharma teacher. Yeah. I think that's, did we miss anything?
Okay. So if after service Chichang needs some assistance from Alex and Sai, is there any other together action? Okay.
Just a quick announcement, Recovery Dharma will meet at noon today in the historic temple, the big yellow building next door.
Great. So let's all stand and we'll conclude with 3 formal bows.
do some food. Yeah, just a little, just a few things. You have a nice voice.
Frank Sinatra was my father.
Okay. Just pick one. Where's the light? Just light for this. Light on the. Well, it's okay because I'm not. Oh, I'm doing doing this because for our Eagles, and I wanted more pictures of people meditating. We need lots of other pictures. Okay. And I'll be right back. I have to get home. Good picture from the back. Yeah. Is it already too? Take a picture from the side. All right. Thank you.
My mother instilled good posture in me. My thinking my older sister. She never paid attention to me when she was.
Yeah, yeah. I think so.
we just noticed a thing on one